But let's make me feel good. And we took something that was like incredible, Regeneron. And I don't know, maybe I would have just been perfect just by doing nothing, but who the hell wants to take a chance? And I woke up the next morning and I felt like Superman. And I woke up the next morning and I felt like Superman. Get me back, get me back. Well, maybe I would have just been perfect just by doing nothing, but who the hell wants to take a chance? And I woke up the next morning and I felt like Superman. You know, we're the party of Abraham Lincoln. A lot of people don't know that. The great Abraham Lincoln, the man that I've always competed against. I said, I can be more presidential than any president ever, except for the possible exception of Abraham Lincoln when he's wearing the hat. That's tough. I can be, actually. It'd be easy. Much easier than what I do. It'd be much easier, but we wouldn't have quite this audience, which goes back to a point where you can't even see it. I'd love to have the cameras show it.
Enter the stars, and good morning, everybody. Welcome to the show. I wanted to open the show with those comments from President Trump in Philadelphia. I believe it was yesterday that this actually aired. And once again, you've got Trump referring to himself as Superman and comparing himself to Lincoln. And this has been consistent over the past several times that we've seen him speak. It occurred in the debates, and now it has become part of his campaign speech. And of course, these are historical figures that we've been discussing now for months. And when we mentioned Superman and Lincoln, in the beginning, people thought we were stretching it, but now we have confirmation that that's exactly what's happening. So, I also wanted to open the show with this. And as these political figures begin to emerge, you've asked me to look into the Democratic side of these decodes. And I think it's now time to start looking into these things. I don't see Biden as a threat so much as I do Kamala Harris. And I do agree that there is a possibility, very strong possibility, this is one of their options that they've got on the table, depending on how all this plays out, to have her move into the seat of power. And make no mistake, this is what this is all about. This is about the seat of power. This is why I focus on certain people at certain times. It's not me doing it. It's God telling me to look into these people. And right now, Trump is the one misleading the most people right now, mostly Christians that he's misleading, down a road that is very dark, that God does not want them going down. And so that's why my efforts have been in that place. But now let's look at Kamala Harris. Now this blew me away this morning. I couldn't believe what we found as I began to look into this woman. Now, of course, her name means lotus. And many of you guys were the ones that found that. I didn't find it. You guys found it. And we've talked a little bit about why her name means lotus. We've talked about the lotus flower and what that means as it relates to time travel, and that lotus seeds can survive for thousands of years before germinating, thousands of years with no water, and then miraculously they come to life. That is transcendence of time. But there's something else. Lotus is also an acronym for Lady of the United States. And maybe that's a little clue that maybe this is how all this is going to unfold. Since we've been having sound problems, I'm going to check back in just a couple times with you guys to make sure that we're okay. Well, so I've actually got sound bars here, so I can make sure we're good. Now, this is what I found. And sorry for those of you that didn't get the notification. I did start a little bit early today. Now, Trump gave the Pope a lotus flower a few years ago as a gift. We'll get into that later in the show. But for now, I wanted to look at Kamala Harris's birthday and mirror it like we always do on this channel. Right? This isn't something new that we just pulled out of a hat. This is what we do on this channel. She was born on October 20th, with 72 days left in the year. And I looked up October 20th, and there it is there, 72 days left in the year. And like we always do, you got to look at the mirror, so you got to find the 72nd day of the year. That's the mirror date. And lo and behold, March 13th. Now this year, March 13th fell on a Friday the 13th, and the reason why I know that is because that's the same day that Trump declared the national emergency earlier this year. It's also the number that appeared in a couple of these time travel films, Somewhere in Time with Christopher Reeve, where he was in room 313 when he got thrown out of the timeline. Now, a couple other revelations with respects to this is that some of you have basically uncovered and decoded what the REV means, and that it probably means reverse. And this is why you have Christopher Reeve. This is why you have Keanu Reeves, all these time travelers. Kyle Reese from Terminator. There's also a Reese in the Philadelphia Experiment film and several other films related to time travel. Now, isn't that interesting? So, a couple of you in the comments were like, Casey, that's got to mean reverse, like reverse time. And I think that you nailed it. That's why they keep casting these people in these roles. But let's get back to Kamala Harris, because this is crazy. So, in order for this to work, there has to be some link between Kamala Harris and emergency, right? Because isn't this is the date that Trump declared the national emergency, 3/13. So is there a link back to Kamala Harris and emergencies? There absolutely is. She served on the subcommittee for emergency management. Very small group here, 9 people. And watch this. In fact, and as I always say, this is where things get creepy. This is the very subcommittee who invoked Trump to sign the March 13th emergency. What are you talking about, Casey? Here's the subcommittee website. And all you got to do is go to the subcommittee website, type in national emergency. It's almost like we already know that we're going to find these things before we find them. Here it is right here. Gabriel Peters is on the very same 9-person committee that Kamala Harris was, and he and his colleagues, as you see right here, this was March 12th, the day before 3/13, the mirror date of Kamala Harris's birthday, urged President Trump to approve disaster declarations to aid state and local governments and CV response. There it is in black and white. Casey, what is happening here? That is very, very, very creepy. Now, if Biden didn't pick Kamala Harris until August, and yet Trump almost seems to choose the date for the emergency declaration 4 months earlier, what does this mean? Well, I call these things signatures of the matrix. They're like little clues that there's much more to our reality than meets the eye, and it's all governed by good and evil, depending on which side of the fence that you're on. Now, I'm not talking about the fake good and evil. I'm talking about true good and evil. God versus the devil, not red versus blue, and all the other paradigms that you've been given. And this is what we're going to talk about today. Because emotions are running high as we count down the days to the election. And of course, Trump is mopping the floor with Biden, right? And that's because it was designed that way. And there's all these stories coming out about traffic rings, we're going to call them, that are being broken up, or so we're told, in Ohio. This just broke yesterday. But mysteriously, none of these rings ever point to anyone further up the ladder that are doing these things. They're claiming that they found these missing children, right? Yeah, we know that children go missing every day. Most of the time, it's a parent who doesn't have custody. But the weird thing about these articles, as you begin to sift through them, is that they're mysteriously vague. And as I say, they almost never get down to the root of the problem. And sometimes, some of these stories are actually fake news. Like this Georgia story, where they claimed to have took down all these rings, right? But in actuality, these are just at-risk children that they wanted to check on to see where they were. So, there's a lot of misinformation and fake news going around. Now, Trump will never rebuke this stuff, but also you'll notice if he was doing such a great job with these traffic rings, wouldn't he be bragging about it? It's kind of like the Q thing, right? Q's out there basically stumping for Trump. He can do no wrong, but Q almost never takes credit for, Trump almost never takes credit for it. He almost never brags on what Q is bringing forward. And it's no different with these traffic rings, right? There's no different. So the United States Marshals are running these stories all over the nation that something's being done. But when you really dig deeper into these stories, they're really not breaking up anything. Here's one example. This is the Georgia. I know this is HuffPost, but do your own research. This was not a designated anti-ring operation. U.S. Marshal Service inspector involved with the operation told the Post. And they always like to name these Operation Not Forgotten. So they're basically making it sound like there's some kind of a war on this stuff, right? This is the impression that they want you to get. We'll get into some of the ramifications of all this as the show unfolds, but I want you to start to think critically and think about what's happening here. The name law enforcement gave the recovery effort was a collaboration between state and federal authorities to locate 78 critically missing children. That term means they could be at risk for traffic rings, but they could also be at risk for parental abuse or have medical conditions. It was a success. They found the children, so they weren't missing, they were at risk. So that would be called fake news, because the headline said that they busted up this ring, right? And of course, all the people that want to believe in Trump, this is what they want you to understand. This is what they believe in. This is part of what they're trying to say that he's doing to change things, but he's really not. What about the elite traffic rings? The deep state of traffic rings, which includes, of course, top officials, Hollywood, probably half of Hollywood. And those people are never really brought to justice. There's like a glass ceiling in this arena where it stops just short of the people at the top. Sure, they've gotten a few bones we've been thrown, but we're far from getting to the root of the problem. Now, you can say and argue that it takes a lot of time to prosecute these people or to run down these leads, but Trump's been on this since the beginning of his presidency. I remember in Operation Broken Heart, same thing, all low-level criminals, claims of breaking up huge rings, but in actuality, the story fell flat because nothing was gleaned from that. That was 3 or 4 years ago. You would think that if they really thought that there were children locked up somewhere, that those leads would be quickly run down and you would get immediate results within 2 to 4 weeks, right? But in actuality, we're not finding the Virginia Giuffre types who are basically living with these billionaires and millionaires in a traffic situation, right? We're not finding that. We're not hearing stories about that kind of thing that we know is going on right now. We're only hearing the low-level criminals. So we're not getting these higher-up arrests. And all this is by design. It's to make you think something's being done, another feather in the cap. But I challenge you on this concept and ask you, are your children really safer? I mean, probably a little based on this, because criminals do read this stuff, and many of them are probably in fear that they could get in trouble, right? So I'm sure that some of this stuff is helping to curb this kind of behavior. And so I'll give Trump that much. But as you and I both know, as parents, we're the only ones that can prevent this from happening to our children. You got to be present, and you don't allow your children in situations where this can happen. In other words, you don't shirk your responsibilities as a parent to protect your children. And if you think about it long and hard enough, you'll understand that the real battle, the real threat that we as parents almost always lose, it isn't that we didn't protect our children against a predator. It's that our children have been sold out to the beast. And it's almost impossible to teach your children not to aspire to fame and to sell out, and not to aspire to promises of fame and empty aspirations based on vanity and slimy rich people. It's almost like they have goggles on where they can't see these people for who they are. And all they want to do is be a Disney actor, and all they want to do is have lots of money and live in that house, because they've been programmed to fall for it every time. Just ask Giswell and Eggstein. They know how the trick works. They were frequenting trailer parks. That's where they got their young girls. And those traffic rings are alive and well in America, emboldened now more than ever. The elite, the rich, they're operating with impunity. And until 5 to 10% of Hollywood gets arrested, I'll never believe anything's being done, because we've already proven that Hollywood is behind most of this, and that people in very high levels in the billionaire club, judges, all the people in Eggstein's Black Book were probably involved in this. And yet they're still walking around. All the models that were on the plane, all of the people that worked on the plane, they're all still walking around. All of his rich billionaire friends are still walking around. And all the other people that we know were involved in this, they seem just untouched. And they're standing around ready to pick off your children one by one by simply waving a $100 bill. And if you don't think your child would fall for it, I got news for you. The brainwashing is profound. Now, how do they do this? How is this accomplished? Well, of course, it's the right-left paradigm. And it's been dividing America for a very long time. Since the beginning, actually, since the founding of the country. And so what happens is when somebody's team is losing, they take it personal. And then those rivalries are stoked by the puppet masters to keep you interested and involved so you can keep giving your consent to the madness. Now, Trump is promising to end CV-19 and all the pain if reelected. But here's what I ask you. Why didn't he do this a long time ago? Do you see how he's leveraging the promise of changing things based on whether or not you'll vote for him? Promising to stick it to the Democrats. He could have done this a long time ago. He didn't really do anything to stop what happened to us over the last 6 months. The entire country shutting down. In fact, he signed the very emergency order, as we talked about earlier in the show, on Friday the 13th of March to make it happen. Now, the crazy thing is, somebody asked me to look at Friday the 13th, and they're like, hey, Casey, Jason Voorhees has the same birthday as Trump. And I'm like, no way. There's just no way. There's no way. Right? There's no way Trump has any connection to Friday the 13th. I almost didn't pick it up and watch it. And then I go, you know what? I'm going to watch this film. So I went back to 1980. That's 40 years ago. And the first opening scene are 2 arrows. The whole movie was about arrows. Remember all the arrows we uncovered? And we're going to do a full decode on this. And lo and behold, the very original movie, Friday the 13th, took place on June 13th. That's the day before Trump's birthday. And then I dig deeper and I find out that Jason Voorhees was born in 46, the same year Trump was born too. And it goes way, way deeper, but I have to say, this is one of the more cryptic decodes that I've done. I've got all these screenshots pulled up. I'm not going to actually show you the actual cinematography from the era, because I believe that that carries some kind of sorcery, and you could get spellbound by it somehow. So we're not going to actually show you that, but I've got screenshots, and I'm going to show you all of the synchronicities relating Friday the 13th to Donald Trump and Jason Voorhees. It's very, very creepy. It almost is to the point where I'm starting to believe that Trump is up there with, like, what was the guy's name? The comedian who was the high wizard in Hollywood. I'm starting to believe that he is up there with it all. So, let's keep going with this. Looks like the sound's okay. Thanks everybody for showing up this morning. Let's keep going with this. So, Trump let the economy shut down. And then there's this, and I'm not going to really talk much about what I'm going to show you next, because it's not really allowed on YouTube anymore. But I'm just going to flip through these headlines, because this is happening all over the US. And you'd think that the left would use this against Trump. It's happening. Here's the army seeing a sharp increase. Now, we told you this was going to happen. Trump actually mentioned it once early on, which was very cryptic, the way he did it, the way he mentioned it. But then he went on to allow the economy to shut down anyway, knowing full well this was going to happen. So people are dying. That's what I'm trying to get you to understand. Even Japan's being affected. Flip through a couple more of these headlines. Here's Malawi, same thing happening. It's an African nation. So, we knew this was going to happen. You don't take away someone's entire livelihood, make them run through their entire life savings just to try to stay afloat, promise them checks that many people don't even get, promise to forego their rent and not let them get evicted, but then they have to pay that back anyway with late fees. It's just basically a, what do they call that? You don't do that to someone and expect that they're not going to get a little depressed about it. Lock them in their houses, keep them away from the people they love. keep them away from grandparents and the elderly who end up dying alone. These are just some of the headlines across the country. It's happening in a lot of states. The mainstream news isn't covering it. Nobody's covering it. These are like local stories. You know, if the left really wanted to get Trump, don't you think that they would, get on this? A lot of people care about this. Affects a lot of people. One person makes this choice, it affects hundreds of people in their lives. So it's not just the one person that goes out. It's a lot of people. This is all over the U.S. India, it's happening too. We just showed you Japan. How do they force someone to not see their loved one before they die? How does that happen? Why are we agreeing to that? These are rural districts in the West and the South. And of course, they're going to try to use this, the left will probably try to use this to take away our self-defense mechanisms. This statistic says 23,000 annually. And it appears as though 7,000 additional. So what is that? That's a 30 to 40% increase. Now I'll link all these in the pinned comment. I can't put it here because that's what's going on. But, okay, Casey, well, Trump sent out all these checks. He wanted to help us. You guys, those checks weren't worth the money that they were printed on. The paper they were printed on. You know, they got the economy got all that money back when your food prices went up 30%. And you had to pay another 20% to have your food delivered. That's gone. That $2,400 is gone. If you're in a normal family, you're going to be spending $800 to $1,000 a month on groceries. So imagine now you tack on additional $300. You do that for 6 months, there just went your stimulus check. Hello? We should have never shut down the economy. What should have happened is those at risk, the elderly, people in their 70s, 80s, and 90s, should have been informed, and provisions should have been made to give them the option to quarantine themselves or to wear a mask to protect themselves. Heck, I wouldn't even be opposed to special business hours for those people at risk, where the store, let's say instead of opening at 7, the first 2 hours would be only for people at risk in their 70s, 80s, and 90s, and anyone else who's afraid can come in the first 2 hours of the store. It'll be nice and empty for them, right? And they can go shopping in a sterile environment with their mask on. And then after they leave, there can be another half an hour where the store is completely shut down so that they can clean everything. If they want to do that, fine. But don't force every single man, woman, and child in America to quit their job, shut down their businesses, wear a mask, and then be shamed if you don't comply. Trump let that happen. The buck stops with him. I know the governors were the ones doing it, but understand there are Republican governors that are doing the same thing. They're copying the Democrat. So this just isn't a party thing. This came from the top. And you better believe it. You better believe it. Because time's running out. Now, during yesterday's speech, Trump even walked back his comments that he made about Hillary Clinton, about locking her up. He actually said that he wasn't the one that made up the phrase. Now, what he actually said was, if he was president, she would be in jail. He did say that, except she's not in jail, so there's another lie. But why would he try to distance himself from the lock her up? That was what everyone was chanting. That was the cornerstone of him running, was to get rid of the deep state and people like her and lock them all up. And now he's going to walk back those comments. Do you see how these demons operate? They always have each other's back before they have yours. They do a lot of pretending. He pretended to hate Hillary. He saw that it was getting him traction. He saw that people had really deep, strong feelings about it. And he went with it. But it was not sincere. Because if it was sincere, she'd be in jail. She's at the head of the deep state. But now he's going to distance himself from those comments. He doesn't want people chanting, lock her up anymore. Because then he'll have to actually do something about it. Do you see how this works? He's a coward. And then, of course, remember all the Superman and Lincoln vids we did months ago, telling you that Trump is channeling these archetypes? Well, now he can't keep Lincoln and Superman out of his mouth. Oh, but election day is coming. If you don't want Biden to turn us all into socialists, you better vote. Are you starting to see how the right-left paradigm works now? It's all about fear. Now, I'll give it to Trump. He did bring the troops home. But what for? Once you understand what I just told you about how these people operate, I'm a little concerned about why he brought all these troops home after 3 decades. Casey, you're just riding Trump. He can do no right in your eyes. That's not true. It's just not true. And why are we believing that Trump can actually bring peace to the world? Because last I checked, the Bible said that sudden destruction would come next after the proclamation of world peace, right? If you're reading your Bibles, you're not supposed to believe that a man can bring world peace. You're supposed to believe that sudden destruction comes upon those who claim it. Why would the Bible say that? Because their proclamation of peace is a complete and total lie. It's meant to get you to comply. So what else is going on? Well, stock markets, 401ks. Trump talks about the health of the economy. But guess what? They have nothing to do with the health of the economy. Most people, if they're lucky, have a few dollars left over to put into a 401k. And that's a long, long investment. It's a lifetime investment. 100 things can happen between now and the time you turn 65 that will wipe out your 401k. And it has. It's almost like a mortgage or life insurance. It's unsustainable. You can't maintain a level of income to pay a mortgage for 30 years. And you're gambling if you think that your property value is going to go up over that time, and that if you have to change or move from that property, that it will be in a position to be able to be sold for a profit. The odds of that happening are very, very low because the market goes up and down. But with most people's luck, the time that they have to move and sell the property, the market's dead or dying or down. So they don't have the ability to sell, or they have to take a loss and they have to go get a loan somehow. They got to go and turn in their $30,000 vehicle and get a loan against it or something. Do you see how this works? It's a con. It's a scam. So anytime someone tells you, oh, my 401ks are through the roof, stock market's booming, It's a scam. That has nothing to do with the economy and the health of the economy. What has to do with the health of the economy is how many small businesses there are, how well they're doing. Are they able to turn a profit based on the way the economy is set up? In other words, are there a bunch of rules and regulations and fines and fees and high rents that are holding small businesses back from turning a profit? That's the true health of the economy. Why small businesses? Because they make up a large swath of America. These are the indicators that I'm concerned about. I want to know how wages are compared to how rents are. So, is a single person working 40 hours a week able to rent their own apartment? Last I checked, that's not happening. That's the true health of the economy, if you really want to be honest about this, that nobody ever talks about. And why is it that corporations are allowed to never make you a full-time employee so that they don't have to pay benefits? What's up with that? Why are people in America still working 2 and 3 jobs just to get full-time hours and then still getting shafted on the benefits? If the economy is so great, if America's so great again, these are real questions that affect a lot of people. Why don't they do away with that? Why don't they do away with how the American worker is getting shafted, getting worked to the bone, and not even getting benefits and having to run all the way across town to 5 different locations just to get full-time hours to pay rent and have a roommate? Right? And why is much of America still working at Walmart, McDonald's, and Burger King? So, if the deep state is under attack, why is there still traffic happening at the highest levels? Why isn't half of Hollywood in jail? A lot of questions. Do you see how somebody with a smooth tone can make you feel like everything's great when it's really not? We're under some kind of spell, you guys. Trump also said in his campaign speech that he'll take basically indoctrination of our children out of the schools and bring back a moral America. That was the gist of what he said. I don't know how he plans to do this with the Dems running the schools. You got to look at his track record. Did Trump stand up for the real patriots in America? The people who stood up against 99% of the population to not wear a mask, to go boldly with their freedoms and rights? Guys, it takes a special human being to do that. To stand up against 99% of the people around you, to be ridiculed, to be given dirty looks, to be shamed, to be kicked out of stores. It takes a very brave and special human being to do that. And last I checked, Trump didn't stand up for those real patriots. The first thing that should have happened is we should have never shut down. Second thing that should have happened, if anybody is fined, harassed, discriminated against for not wanting a VC or not wearing a mask, they should have been stood up for. You should have put a stop to that. Executive order, first day. You will not fine, harass, or discriminate against somebody who does not want to wear a mask. That didn't happen. He let this thing ride. And last I remember, he gave in and started wearing a mask too. Oh, but if you don't vote Biden, Biden will win. He'll kill all the oil jobs and force us all into electric cars and make us wear masks. Trust me, you guys, it's going to happen anyway. Why do you think Trump is pushing 5G whiz and beyond? Because all that will be needed for the driverless cars, the technocratic prison, the electric cars, everything that they're going to push through anyway. It just depends on who they decide to put in office to swing things to the right or to the left, to make it look like there's a competition, and all the while they're just behind the scenes. They know exactly where they're going to take America. You guys, this is the greatest country in the world. Do you think they're not all sitting around going, how are we going to make our plan come to fruition? It's one group pretending to be two groups. That's exactly what's happening. If you don't think that's true, look at what's happening in California. They just outlawed gasoline cars starting in 2030. No more can be sold in California. State by state, that's how it's going to happen. And if you want to look at how Trump handled these kinds of situations based on his past track record with masks, what is he ever going to do to stop any of this from happening? Nothing. It's all words and insults, no action. So, of course, Trump talked about needing to open the schools. Well, then do it. If Bush was able to force curriculums on schools and No Child Left Behind, then Trump can force the schools open. Think about that for a second. Use your common sense. Bush got a law passed, No Child Left Behind, that forced the actual learning curriculum of your child and all this testing. If he was able to do that, a president could do that, then a president can force schools to reopen. He won't do it because he's afraid. He's afraid. Well, actually, he's not afraid. That's part of the right-left paradigm. He wants you to think he's afraid, that the Dems will fake another wave and that he'll be blamed, right? And those of you that have been looking at your screen are probably chomping at the bit to what this is all about. What's up with this Egyptian lotus flower arrangement that Trump gave the Pope on the 144th day of the year in 2017? March 24th was the date. Here's the artist. This bronze artwork. There's your copper. Bronze is 88% copper. Gave the Pope a sculpture, and it's everything you thought it would be. Now, I had this guy's website pulled up, and my system kept crashing every time I'd pull his website up. Here's the artist here. Now, after what we uncovered about the lotus flower and Kamala Harris, Kamala meaning lotus, Lady of the United States, all the I Pet Goat Lotus references, Lotus meaning time travel or the indestructible Egyptian bloodline that transcends time. Isn't this a little weird? The sculpture is called Rising Above by Jeffrey C. Smith, given to the Pope by Trump. This was in 2017. He's got a Wikipedia page. He's born in 61. In June. I wonder if he has the same birthday as Trump. They don't show his birth date. They just say June 1961. Weird, right? There's the May 24th date, 144th day of the year, half of 88. And here's the story. Right here. Local artist behind Trump's gift to Pope Francis. The Copper Lotus. Bizarre. So, this dovetails exactly into everything we've been talking about. Now, I know there's lotus flowers in Florida. I get all that. But rising above and everything we talked about, this is just very weird. And finally, the last part of today's show, I promised you I would look at this Anthrax connection to the scare of Halloween 2001. That was 19 years ago. And I found this 20-page document that came out. Let's see, what's the date on this document? We're going to sift through this because there are some very strange connections to Trump, Giuliani, and this whole Anthrax thing, which I thought was really weird. Trump, AMI, Anthrax, and Giuliani. AMI's David Pecker and Donald Trump are old friends. After the 2001 Anthrax, let's make this a little bit bigger so you guys can see this. We're going to round out the show with this story. If I can fix this up here. Oh, maybe we can do this. Make it full screen. See if that works. There we go. All right, now we're rolling. Check the sound first. We'll keep this going. Looks like we're good. Okay. AMI's David Pecker, that's a funny name, and Donald Trump are old friends. Who's AMI? I haven't not read through this whole thing. Just read through like the first part of it. Who is AMI? I guess we'll have to figure that out later. After the 2001 Anthrax ATTACK at AMI, company owned by Trump's old friend Giuliani. Okay, so Giuliani owns AMI. Cleaned up AMI and confiscated all the scandalous photos and documents which had become contaminated, quote unquote. The alleged ATTACK was likely a pretext for securing the scandalous photos and documents. Office of Emergency, my comment of his position. Okay, so this is like a document that kind of details kind of the history behind these connections to Trump. And I'll put this in the pinned comment as well if you're interested in reading through this more, because this is really interesting. Now, let's go back into the chat, see what's up with you guys. Appreciate everybody coming to the show. We got shows for the rest of the week leading up to Halloween because there's a lot of crazy stuff going on. Flip through some of these I'll flip through some of these Friday the 13th still shots that I collected here. Do like a little teaser. So between Election Day and when Friday the 13th came out, which was May 9th, the day before Trump's mother's birthday, in 1980, there were 33 years, 33 months, 33 weeks, 42 days. We know the 42 is the God number, and he wants to be like God, right? So that's weird. Election Day, counting back 33 years, 33 months, 33 weeks, 42 days, is the date that Friday the 13th came out on May 9th, the day before his mom's birthday. Here's the comparison of the two birthdays. Jason Voorhees, June 13th, Trump, June 14th, both born in 1946. There's the arrow in Trump's coat of arms. Crystal Lake takes place in 1958. That's another number we've been talking a lot about. So there are some teaser images there. And like I said, we're going to do a full breakdown on that coming up before the end of the week. All right. Someone picking on the Christians that come to the channel. Just saw it out of the corner of my eye. What's going on? I think my moderators are all Christians, so I don't know why they'd be picking on Christians. So let's go into the chat for a little bit and see what's up with you guys. Let this catch up. It takes a minute. All right. The time is nigh. Absolutely. This will be an election to remember. I'm almost positive of that. Okay. Wow, this is going by so fast. It just takes a minute to catch up here, you guys. Sorry. So, what's going on here? Well, to summarize today's show, they're using the right-left paradigm to leverage, how do I put this? Trump has plausible deniability. He can say he has nothing to do with what's happening right now because it's all the governors doing it. But his whole theory gets shot out of the water when you consider the fact that Republican governors are following the same exact protocol as the Democratic governors. So that's hogwash. It's hogwash. He could have done something. He could have done a lot of things to get us out of the situation we're in. And if his fear was that he wouldn't get reelected by doing that and that he would alienate Democrats, that's hogwash too. What happened to bold Trump, who does whatever he wants for the betterment of people, the people? Right? So, hey, it's up to you guys. If you want to keep playing along with his lies, then it's on us. For those people that are just like, oh, he's better than Biden, I'm voting for Trump, then that's on you. You're just going to stay asleep and continue the deception. But I'm trying to get you to think with an open mind and understand what's really going on here. Okay, let's see here. Yeah, there is a lot of fear going on, isn't there? In the mainstream media. Fearing you into voting for one candidate or another. So, all right. Okay, some people have to bow out. Okay, I'll take care. Oh, there's a Friday the 13th in November. That's interesting. All right. I think I need some food. Fake news in media, vote Trump, somebody said. Okay, that's what you want to do. I think we pretty much showed everything. We presented all the facts of what's really happening, but if you still want to do that, that's fine. Doesn't matter who we get. Yeah, the Operation Dark Winter, which Biden slipped out of Biden's mouth. That was kind of funny. I don't think he was supposed to let that go. But maybe he did it intentionally too. Then Trump comes back and says, oh, Biden's talking about a dark winter, and Trump's like, I'm just going to think positive, and we're not going to have a dark winter. Well, all of that's part of their little game that they play. The back and forth. It's like ping pong. They go back and forth and back and forth. And in that, who loses? You and I. It's all a game. And they're out in the open with it that it's a game. Why? Because you see them in these fictional situations, like Trump and his TV shows, reality TV. You think that's all real? Of course it's not real. Or in his wrestling match, WWE. So they're telling us who they are and what they do. It's us who decides to believe them when they're pretending to be serious. So they're all actors. Mike Biden's an actor, Trump's an actor, they're all actors. Yes, Friday the 13th, Trump signed over authority to FEMA. You're absolutely right. All right. Okay, guys, I'm going to let you go. Have a great day. Take care and be safe.